Good morning, YouTube, and welcome to the Reptile Barn. We have something important, kind of heavy to talk to you about today. Alright? So if any of you are ever planning on purchasing a snake from out of state or selling a snake out of state, please don't click away. This is important. So, many of you may have seen the video that came out a little bit ago from Mutation Creation, or his follow-up video just a couple days ago. Basically, Billy at Mutation Creation ordered some real high-end snakes and had them shipped to him, and they delayed badly, like 3 days. He was panicking, right? Yeah, of course he was. These are live animals. Even if they weren't expensive, you'd be panicking. The money that you're out if something goes wrong. I mean, he was just really upset. He's in Canada. I know people think of Canada as this barren wasteland, kind of like they think of Alaska, but it was cold. It was in like the 30s, maybe low 40s, he said, and but safe range to ship as long as everything's done right. The packing was like above and beyond. The packaging actually saved these animals' lives, right? Basically, they delayed badly and were very nearly dead on arrival. Okay, frozen, nothing really moving much. It was horrible to watch, which is why I've got this guy out, because the same thing happened to me with this animal right here. He arrived totally non-responsive, no breathing, nothing, liquid leaking out of his nose, just terrible to experience and terrible for the animal. I'm sure it was painful and frightening, and so he's opening multiple boxes of this, right? And I felt horrible watching this, and had a few thoughts on this. And his follow-up video was superb. It's a little long, but if anyone's interested in this topic, I really recommend you watch it. I think the original actually he took down. He didn't want to get the wrong sort of attention. People outside the hobby who would just be attacking everything that we do. Anyway, I want to talk about cold weather shipping and hot weather shipping too, but especially relevant to me is cold weather shipping. And much of North America, right? Canada and the US, pretty much everywhere gets some cold in the winter, right? Far too cold for a ball python or most reptiles to be exposed to during shipment. So I want to address a couple of things right off the bat. In the original video, a little bit from the people at Mutation Creation, but most of the people in the comments absolutely bashing FedEx, just vicious attacks on FedEx, that they could have done this to these poor animals, as if FedEx employees went out and I'm gonna freeze these snakes to death. I mean, really, as if they thought that FedEx was just these horrible animal abusers out to kill reptiles. And all apologies to Mutation Creation, because they didn't really do anything wrong either, but it certainly was not FedEx's fault. We are warned as a reptile community by all of the shippers, Reptile Express, Reptiles to You, Ship Your Reptiles, who we use. The closer you get to the holidays, the more likely delays are. FedEx does their absolute best, but they can't suddenly have 3 to 4 times the number of employees and flights only at Christmas time. It can't happen. No company can do that. And they try, there's seasonal hirings and stuff, but you can't actually keep up with the holiday demand as a major shipper. There's delays. It just happens, especially in priority stuff that's supposed to be overnighted. It just doesn't always happen. So these poor animals of Billy's got stuck out on the tarmac for like 30 hours or something. I mean, it was bad. I am in shock that they're alive. So, what could have been done? First off, you can just not ship, right? And in his follow-up video, that's what he says. He's like, look, this isn't worth it. It's not worth it business-wise. It's not worth it for the animals. It's not worth it for the customer. It's not worth it for the seller. It's not worth it for FedEx. This is just a horrible situation. I'm just not going to ship anymore in December at all, right? So he's going to be more conservative even than the shippers are saying we ought to be, which is a fantastic response. And he was very open. He was just like, look, if somebody can't wait an extra couple weeks than they expected for their live animal that's, you know, supposed to join their family and be loved and cherished, if they can't wait a couple of extra weeks for its safety, then they're welcome to buy elsewhere. Really, that's just how it is. And I completely agree with him. If somebody gets mad at me because I'm telling them that there are weather delays and we can't ship yet, I will reconsider shipping to that person or selling them the animal at all. If their impatience dictates to them that they're willing to put a risk on the life of the animal, I don't want them to have my animal, right? I will hold on to that animal and sell it to somebody else who will be responsible and put the animal first. But in my mind, there are some workarounds to ship safely within reason, okay? We're so close to the holiday now, we're not going to ship, of course not. We're waiting till after the new year, right? However, living in Alaska, we have to become very knowledgeable about how to ship in cold weather. So we have some kind of hard and fast rules that we go by. First, we double the industry standard of insulation, right? A lot of breeders use 1/2 inch rigid insulation to line their boxes. We use a full inch, at least. I've used 1.5 inches before. Second, we use a larger box than necessary so that we don't have to poke air holes, okay? And this freaks people out. They're like, how could you not poke air holes? Look, we've had snakes delay by 2 full days. So we're talking a 3-day shipment here, and absolutely no respiratory distress whatsoever, because we have a little hatchling snake in a bigger box, right? We don't save the couple of bucks that it would save us to ship them in a tiny box. We like to give them more space so that we don't have to poke any air holes. Insulate it heavily, and then we can use a larger heat pack. So the industry standard, again, is a 40-hour heat pack. And these are Reptile heat packs, like from heatpack.com. These are not hand warmers. These are a much more controlled heat output, right? We don't use 40-hour heat packs because when there are delays, which do happen, the 40-hour heat pack is at risk of running out of heat entirely before it is delivered. So if it's also cold at the delivery side of the shipment, we're in trouble, right? And a snake is going to get way too cold. We use 72-hour heat packs, okay? Now, another hard and fast rule for us is we will not ship below 20 degrees, meaning like the daily high. Now on like Ship Your Reptiles, they won't even give you shipping insurance below 38 degrees. So we already go lower than what can be insured. So we're not insuring these packages. It's just on us. You know, we will personally reimburse a customer if something were to go wrong. Well, not, knock on wood. Hopefully it doesn't. But we would just have to cover it ourselves. We couldn't buy insurance from Ship Your Reptiles at those low temperatures. If the daily high isn't at least 20, we just don't ship. And, in Alaska, that does happen. We're in Anchorage, so it doesn't happen as much as you would think. But there's plenty of times where we just can't ship. We have to wait till it warms up a bit, right? We watch the weather at the major hubs in Memphis and Indianapolis. If they're going to have a bad storm, we don't ship because they're very likely to delay. We watch the weather at the recipient's side of things. If they're going to have a bad storm or real severe cold or heat, we just won't ship. Now, what happens a lot for us, and those of you who live in cold states, Minnesota, the Dakotas, anywhere that has really cold winters, and you want to ship, but you're shipping somewhere like Texas or Florida or Southern California where it's a lot warmer than where you're at, there's a trick. We obviously, if the recipient is really hot, if it's 20 degrees up here in Alaska and it's 90 degrees down in Florida, I'm out of luck. I can't put in a heat pack because it would roast on the Florida end, but I can't leave a heat pack out because it would freeze on my end. So in that case, I'm just out of luck, and I'm going to do some waiting, right? But if it's kind of just borderline, where it's a little too warm on one end and a little too cold on my end, what I can do is I can take a 20-hour heat pack, start it early, and ship it with that. So what that does is, when I go to ship, I put the heat pack in, I put the snake in, take it to FedEx. 10, 12 hours later, that heat pack is running out, but the shipment has also left Alaska, and now it's down in Tennessee, right? In Memphis, in the big hub, where it's a lot warmer, so it doesn't need the heat pack. So a lot of times in spring and fall, where it's getting colder here earlier than it is there, that's what I do. Or in the winter time, if it's a little bit cold with the recipient, but it's really cold on my end, I'll put in my 72-hour heat pack like normal, but then I'll do that 20-hour heat pack early thing as well. So there's an extra boost of heat for the first few hours of shipment until it's left Alaska. It runs out of heat, that 20-hour heat pack, so then it's just a normal shipment with one heat pack in it. So there's things you can do. There really are. And it's not FedEx's fault, but Mutation Creation did make a good point. He was just talking about how the entire hobby, not just FedEx, although they have it as well, but the entire hobby makes improvements over time, right? I haven't been in it long enough to just point them all out, but there's been improvements, and he believes, and I hope and agree with him, that FedEx will also adapt, and that they will be able to either have a new protocol with live shipments, some form of tracing them so that if there's a delay, they can trace to exactly where that box is and pull it off the tarmac and get it in a warm room. Something, just something, because the volume of shipments now from the reptile hobby is a significant source of income for FedEx now. Hundreds of thousands of shipments that we are generating for them, right? Not that they owe us somehow, but just as far as good business, you want to keep major client bases happy. Anyways, so he was just talking about how FedEx might be able to make some improvements as well. We can be more cautious, more cognizant of what is happening with weather. Just if everybody takes a couple of steps forward in this, thinking things through, we will be able to keep our animals safer. It is already incredibly safe. FedEx and the reptile hobby working together ship an unimaginable number of reptiles, and an astronomically low number of them have any problems. They do have delays, but as long as they're packed correctly, people have been aware of the weather, people have taken precautionary steps, very few animals, percentage-wise, I don't want to get people in the comments, my animal was dead on arrival, or mine was too cold, or mine was too... Yes, I know that they do happen. Obviously, this guy right here, that's what happened, right? And so that brings me to my last point of this video. Reptile bodies, their physiology, while they can't really handle a lot of cold, their resiliency is unbelievable. This animal, to all intents and purposes, was dead. All right? He was just frozen. He was limp. He was just hanging limply. His eyes looked glazed. His tongue was hanging out of his mouth, and he was dripping fluids. He was dead, dead, dead. Did not respond when I poked him, touched his eye, opened his mouth, nothing, right? If you have an animal like this, a reptile, don't give up immediately. In fact, wait several hours before giving up, because if their core isn't totally frozen through, sometimes they can survive, as evidenced by this guy, by Mutation Creation's animals. If any of you watch Kamp Kenan, he just had Slinky, his big old water monitor, nearly freeze to death, but he brought him back and he seems to be recovering really well. This happens in the reptile community to big breeders and little breeders and hobbyists and newcomers, and it happens, right? So the trick is you cannot just stick your reptile straight onto heat and pump it up super fast. It will go into shock and die. You must bring it up slowly and gradually. Allow it to reacclimate to room temperature. Then start using some body heat, rubbing it and petting it and using your body a little bit. Don't just stick it in an incubator or on the rack, right on the heat tape or under a heat lamp. That can kill it. The shock of that can just shut them down, right? So, as painful and agonizing, you kind of wish you could just kind of stick it somewhere hot and then walk away and hope for the best, but we shouldn't do that. We gotta let them acclimate slowly so that they warm up without going into shock, right? But the good news is they're very tough. This guy is now growing. He's eating like a champion. He shows no more signs of discombobulation, whatever that word is. He has his balance back, his precision. He's eating perfectly. Bowel movements are perfect. Sheds are perfect. He's a 100% recovered animal, right? And I am praying that is the case for Kamp Kenan's animal and for Mutation Creation's animals. Anyone else out there who this may have happened to, I hope that they recover, but we need to take the steps to where that recovery isn't necessary in the first place, if at all possible. Freak accidents happen, and we should not just sit around and blame ourselves and wish we'd never got into reptiles. Freak accidents can happen in anything in your life. If you give up on every single hobby where something goes wrong, you're not going to have any hobbies left. So, we need to be able to deal with tragedies and not just be broken forever. But we should still try and avoid them with all of our might if we can, right? So, that is all. I hope that something in there was eye-opening. Those of you who do purchase animals from out of state, be aware of these things. Ask your breeder questions. I know some people get a little bit nervous of asking these sorts of questions to the breeder that they're about to buy from. They don't want to come across as insulting, like assuming the breeder doesn't know what they're doing. But I'm in Alaska. I have bought snakes from people in Florida before, and they just truly didn't comprehend the cold that we experience. They see it on TV. They look at they look it up on Google what my temperatures are, so they know in their head, oh, it's negative 10 degrees in Alaska. But then they're still telling me they want to ship, and I'm like, you can't ship to me. It is negative 10 degrees. We have to wait. And they're like, oh yeah, I guess that is really cold. I'm like, yeah, that is really cold. So it's okay to communicate with these people. And if you get a breeder who's insisting, they're like, oh no, it'll be totally fine. I'll just stick 7 heat packs in there. Really strongly consider buying from someone else, because either they don't know what they're doing well enough to keep the animal safe, or worse, they don't care if the animal is safe. They just want to make the sale. Either one of those things should be a red flag to you to maybe just go buy the animal somewhere else, or take some other extraordinary measure to keep the animal safe. But I don't know. I would be turned off by that, and I would buy elsewhere. Which really stinks when you get a one-of-a-kind animal that you've been searching for and you finally find it, but then maybe the breeder isn't the best. But that's maybe a topic for another video. I just wanted to really hit this hard and detailed cold weather shipping, how to warm a snake back up, or a lizard if they seem frozen on arrival. And that is all. The only other thing that I saw on the Mutation Creation update video that I want to pass on to you guys, because I never heard it before, is the animal might be, I'm going to try this again, discombobulated. Or discombobulated. It's discombobulated. Anyway, sorry guys. The animal might be out of focus. It might have a lack of muscle control. It might have balance problems, perception problems for a while as it's kind of warming back up. But it also might be dehydrated. So you don't want to just not give it water, but you don't want deep water. Just a little bit in the bottom so that if it has trouble backing out of the water bowl or something, it's not going to just drown, right? So anyway, that was one last little thing that I wanted to touch on. As always, I hope that you guys enjoyed. At the very least, I hope you enjoyed staring in awe at this beautiful creature here. But he's a survivor. He's tough. Came back from the dead like Voldemort, which is why my kids named him Voldemort. And I'll never get... my kids have a Harry Potter thing. Like, they have it bad. Which, you know, I can't complain. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, we're the Reptile Bar.